WWE Elimination Chamber in Perth, Australia in the books, the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania 40. And as we talked about in the prediction video, we got a couple more clear answers on some matches that are going to be on that card in Philadelphia. We're going to break down this whole show and especially talk about what is to come on the road to WrestleMania 40. Now, first things first, I did not watch the kickoff. I watched this show later in the day. I couldn't watch it at 5 a.m., and I wasn't going to bother going back and watching this women's tag team title match that was on the kickoff. The Kabuki Warriors obviously retained over Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, but nonetheless, we'll get into the main show. And you guys know how we do these reviews. We kind of jump around and just let it flow. We will start from the bottom with the Women's World Championship match that main evented the Elimination Chamber. Nia Jax versus Rhea Ripley. Solid matchup here. I mean, obviously, no disrespect when I say this, but it's a Nia Jax match. You know, there is a little bit of a limitation on there. But as I said in my prediction video, Nia's been pretty decent since making her WWE return. Her and Becky at day one was probably one of the best matches she's ever had. And this was probably up there as well. Nia controlled most of the matchup, and Rhea Ripley got the win in the end, as expected. Rhea Ripley going in to WrestleMania 40 as she should as the Women's World Champion. We will let that bleed into the Women's Elimination Chamber match. We had Becky Lynch winning that matchup over Liv Morgan, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, Raquel Rodriguez, and Bianca Belair. Couple of notes about this match before we talk about Becky and Rhea. Tiffany Stratton over as all hell in Australia. I don't know what the, I mean, obviously I'm not saying like, oh, why Tiffany Stratton? But like, out of everybody in the match, it was surprising to see the one heel of the entire match being the like most over out of everybody. Like, honestly, like I think she got the best babyface reaction out of everybody. I don't know if there's any like Australian roots there, if just Australia was just like super into Tiffany Stratton, but like literally to the point where they're booing, there we go, Liv Morgan. It was very surprising to see. And coming out of this matchup, I can definitely see a couple of singles feuds, or at least one-on-one matches in the near future between Tiffany Stratton and Bianca Belair, Tiffany and Liv Morgan running it back as they did on SmackDown. Would love to see a couple of those matchups. If tonight, or I should say, yesterday at this point, if Elimination Chamber was any indication of what we already pretty much knew, Tiffany Stratton is going to be a huge star. As I said in my prediction video, championships are in her future. It just obviously wasn't going to be at WrestleMania 40, but she had a hell of a performance. Every time Tiffany's in, this is something we knew in NXT. Anytime she's in a big time match, especially a matchup with no rules like an Elimination Chamber or a ladder match or a no DQ, Extreme Rules, whatever her and Becky was at No Mercy last year, Tiffany Stratton is going to do something probably pretty crazy, and she's going to make herself known in that matchup, and she did it again tonight, so hats off to her. And coming into this matchup, there was two legit winners and one dark horse in my eyes. Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, and Raquel were not those three. Bianca I saw as a real dark horse from this match. I do believe her and Rhea, and WWE I'm sure knows this, is a WrestleMania match, and eventually we will get that. But it happening this year I thought was kind of off to the side. Like, I was like, maybe they'll pull it out. Maybe it'll be a shocker. Bianca wins. And I wouldn't necessarily be complaining, but she was definitely the dark horse coming into this thing. And then the two, main picks that everyone was really saying was Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan. And Liv's really up there because of A, she just made her return, and B, the unfinished business with Rhea Ripley. And you guys heard me say multiple times here on the channel by now that if it were me, I would have gone the Liv Morgan story. But at the same time, I couldn't argue with Becky Lynch. I mean, that is something that WWE has slowly but surely been brewing for over a year at this point. I mean, now they've literally pointed it out on television that they have crossed paths here and there, had a couple of multiple stare downs, and that's about it. That's all we've seen of Becky and Rhea, and they've clearly built it up for a WrestleMania match for a while, so it just made the most sense that we were going there. And I'm real interested to see what's going to happen with Liv Morgan coming out of this, man, because ever since her return from the Rumble, Liv's not necessarily her, I don't even know what to say, jovial babyface self. Like, there's a little bit of a different edge about Liv Morgan. And coming out, and I know the Elimination Chamber is in Australia, a different crowd reaction. Nobody could have been expecting Tiffany Stratton to be the hottest babyface of the match, according to the crowd. But I would not be surprised if a heel turn is in Liv Morgan's future, man. Whether it's her and Raquel down the line. I mean, maybe that's a little bit out of question because Liv's still pretty popular. But I don't know, man. I see Liv being in a prominent storyline all month Monday Night Raw. Not necessarily making it on WrestleMania at this point. Remains to be seen, unless her and Raquel are going to team up against, the Kabuki Warriors or something. I don't know. Remains to be seen. But there's got to be something for Liv on Monday Night Raw. I just feel like something there. And again, they got to tie up that unfinished business with Rhea Ripley. Whether it's going to happen at WrestleMania, obviously it is not. There's still a story to tell there. And honestly, they can maybe go there post WrestleMania, because to bleed into my next, little bit of a topic here, Becky and Rhea, big matchup, gonna be great. Obviously, Becky always shows up in those big time matches. Not saying she doesn't elsewhere, but especially those big time matches. She has had some great ones at WrestleMania. If you're asking me, and I've said this already here on the channel, I'm going Rhea Ripley. And we still got 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever it is until WrestleMania. But if tonight was any indication, and I feel like we already knew this, but Rhea Ripley is just such on a different level than anybody else on Raw, SmackDown, NXT in the women's division. And she is absolutely the most popular star in the women's division. And on top of that, just one of the most popular stars in the company. I don't see one good reason to take that Women's World Championship off of Rhea Ripley. She won it last year, or won the SmackDown Women's Championship last year at WrestleMania. And let's be real, they really didn't tap into her being like, I don't even want to say like a dominant champ, because she obviously has been a dominant champ, but like there was many a times throughout her reign where she really was just kind of in the background of the Judgment Day. It was more involved in Judgment Day business than her own business. And they've literally brought that to light on television as of a couple months ago. And we've seen her defend the title against, Ivy Niles, Zoe Stark, Nia Jax, Raquel Rodriguez. Like, she's obviously had plenty of defenses over the last year, but I still feel like there's so much more to go with Rhea Ripley, and especially the Liv Morgan story. I could see Rhea going through Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, taking on Liv Morgan afterwards. Maybe Liv wins the title, but I could even see Rhea going through that and building to a Rhea Bianca next year at WrestleMania. That's how long-term I'm thinking with Rhea Ripley, because there's just no good reason outside of, Becky Lynch should win the title, that Rhea should lose that right now. And another thing that I've been saying for a while, I tweeted this like last summer, that the crowd eventually is going to turn Rhea Ripley babyface. She's just that over, and she's basically there already. And even in the last few weeks, weren't even in Australia, but her feud with Nia Jax is just giving the crowd all the more reason to cheer her. I would not be surprised if we get to Philadelphia at WrestleMania and the crowd is pro Rhea Ripley. I know I'm going to be in attendance. I'm rooting for the Women's World Champion herself. So we'll see what happens at WrestleMania. But I see no good reason to take that title off Rhea Ripley right now. Red hot, especially coming out of the Elimination Chamber, on top of the world. Let's talk about the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship match. The Judgment Day, Damian Priest and Finn Balor versus Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, officially known as the New Catch Republic. As we discussed in the prediction video, this was obviously going to be a great matchup. Just look at the talent that's in there. And I was all for Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate getting this spot. And again, not to sound like a broken record from my prediction video, but as much as I would have loved to see New Catch Republic win the tag team championships, as much as I would love to see DIY get a run with the titles right now, that is not what the current Judgment Day storyline calls for. If any indication of Monday Night Raw has told us what is going to happen in this storyline, and if you've been listening to the crowd on Raw, there is only one team that should be taking down the Judgment Day right now, and it's crazy to say, but it is literally R-Truth and The Miz. That is what the story calls for. You want to talk about being red hot? Look no further than R-Truth. We talked about this already. I will say it again. Judgment Day obviously retained tonight. They're going to take those titles into WrestleMania, where they need to face and lose to R-Truth and The Miz, with obviously R-Truth getting the pinfall over Damian Priest. That's what needs to happen in the future. As for the Elimination Chamber, though, Judgment Day, of course, retaining over Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, and it was a real fun matchup, man. Right out of the get-go as well. The crowd was hot, booing Dominic Mysterio. I almost called him the British Strong Style, but New Catch Republic. Gonna have to get into that flow with that name, even though I like the name. Obviously started off hot, and I just love both of these guys, man, especially Pete Dunne. And I already said this again, but just glad he's back to return to form. Happy to see Tyler Bate on the main roster as of the last few months, and eventually they got to get their run as tag team champions. And I hope that we have enough teams, more legitimate teams to do it with. I hope after WrestleMania we get a split of the tag team titles. I don't see any good reason why we shouldn't. There's enough teams between Raw and SmackDown, more teams that you could bring up from NXT if need be, and just the random teams that get paired together sometimes that two guys like a Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, who obviously have history, but, you know, really probably weren't going to be doing anything by themselves anytime soon. All right, we could put them together in a team. After WrestleMania, give me a split of the tag team titles. Just throwing that out there. And then, of course, we had the Elimination Chamber match to determine Seth Rollins' opponent for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40. Now, one thing I also did not mention is we had the Grayson Waller effect on this show. We'll rewind back to the Elimination Chamber match with Cody and Seth Rollins. And the most notable two things coming out of it were Cody Rhodes challenging The Rock to a one-on-one matchup. Maybe that's going to happen on WrestleMania Saturday. At this point, it's still up in the air. We didn't really get any questions answered with that whole situation at the Chamber. And also, Grayson Waller just let them beat up Austin Theory at the end. So I don't know if they're splitting up Theory and Waller. At this point, I'm really starting to feel bad for my guy, Austin Theory. I don't even know. Like, maybe he should just be off TV till, like, after WrestleMania and then come back and just restart the wheels or something, because I'm feeling real bad for my guy, A-Town Down, Austin Theory. You guys tell me I look like him all the time. Because of that, I've just always been a fan of him. I just ordered his new t-shirt last night, and then he gets beat up at the Elimination Chamber. So, I mean, I just had to mention that. But, you know, we're all Austin Theory fans around here, unless at least I am. So, you know, A-Town Down, brother. Nonetheless, back to the Elimination Chamber match. We had Drew McIntyre winning the Elimination Chamber over Bobby Lashley, Kevin Owens, LA Knight, the United States Champion Logan Paul, and Randy Orton. This was a hell of a matchup. Really enjoyed it. And definitely some WrestleMania implications outside of McIntyre winning this matchup coming out of this. Let's talk about McIntyre first, because this is something we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, ever since CM Punk went down with injury after the Royal Rumble. I've been saying it. A lot of people getting on that bandwagon as well, that Drew McIntyre is the guy to not only fight Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, but to defeat Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. And I absolutely loved the ending of this matchup, not just because we had a setup for a possible Logan Paul versus Randy Orton or multi-man matchup, which we'll talk about in a moment, but Randy Orton, all throughout this matchup, is favoring his lower back after a DDT to Kevin Owens on the outside. And Corey Graves and Michael Cole really did a good job blurring the lines of whether this was a real injury or whether he was just, you know, obviously selling the thing that just happened in the ring. Phenomenal job with that, to the point where now Orton is nursing his back the entire time. And obviously it plays into the previous back injury that Randy Orton just came back from a couple of months ago. McIntyre going for a Claymore kick. Orton's down, but as McIntyre's charging up for it, before he could even hit it, Orton just collapses in the ring. And it brought you back to Crown Jewel when McIntyre fought Seth Rollins, and McIntyre hesitated to attack Seth Rollins because of Rollins' injured back. And this is when McIntyre was still teetering into his heel turn of what we see today. Similar to that situation, I really like it because, again, I think it brought you back to that Crown Jewel moment and is meant to show you, even though he got caught, that McIntyre is not the same guy he was a couple of months ago. And going into WrestleMania, McIntyre will not hesitate to target Seth Rollins' back, to target Seth Rollins' knee, which Rollins said that he is almost cleared to go, which is great. Nice little, I don't know, maybe character development, storyline development, whatever you want to call it there. Nice callback to Crown Jewel. I just love that finish right there with McIntyre and Orton. And now we can confirm that McIntyre will face Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. Whether it's on WrestleMania Saturday or Sunday, it's going to happen in Philadelphia nonetheless. And Rollins has had a great reign, in my opinion, as world champion. Has fought a lot of different guys. This will be the third match with Drew McIntyre, and McIntyre needs to win the world title. You know, I'm still seeing people on social media saying, oh, well, McIntyre, he hasn't re-signed a contract yet. That's what Dave Meltzer said, even though that dude's gotten like a million things wrong as of late. Just to put my 2 cents out there real quick, everyone talk about this McIntyre contract situation. Maybe his contract's still going to expire after WrestleMania. Listen, I'll be the first one to tell you if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong here. Why? Because sometimes all you got to do is watch the show, not necessarily listen to what some people say. Cody Rhodes, the second most protected guy next to Roman Reigns ever since his return 2 years ago, just got pinned by Drew McIntyre, of all people, on Monday Night Raw. And then McIntyre goes on top of that and wins the Elimination Chamber and will challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40. Do you think WWE puts the spotlight like that on all guys of Drew McIntyre right now, if McIntyre has not put pen to paper, has not inked a new deal, and plans to possibly leave after WrestleMania? Sometimes you don't got to listen to people on the internet. Sometimes you just got to watch the television show and it'll tell you all you need to know. I'll be the first one to tell you when I'm wrong, if I am. but I don't think I am. McIntyre going into WrestleMania, challenging for the world title, and the destiny that he has been talking about since 2009 could, yes, happen in 2020, but now needs to happen in front of people in Philadelphia, Lincoln Financial Field. McIntyre needs to leave as World Heavyweight Champion. Couple of other notes from this matchup. Of course, McIntyre was the only Raw superstar in this thing. The rest of them are all coming from SmackDown. And Logan Paul, eliminated by Randy Orton with a RKO out of nowhere. Moments later, Logan Paul cracking Randy Orton, I believe, with the brass knucks and allowing McIntyre to get the pinfall to win this matchup. So obviously, this is not anybody Logan Paul just cracked in the face with brass knucks. This is Randy Orton. If we know anything by watching the television over the last 20 years of Randy Orton's career, Orton's going to come back to retaliate. The United States championship situation, I should say, on SmackDown has been real interesting going into WrestleMania. And there's just been, and I've said this multiple times, most of the talent on Raw, the bigger names you can pin up against certain guys at WrestleMania. You know, even Gunther, he's got just a select few opponents, I think, for Mania. But when it comes to SmackDown, you know, you've had Logan Paul, Lashley, Orton, AJ, LA Knight, all these guys where, like, you really don't know where they're going to end up for WrestleMania. There's no clear-cut direction. And, you know, months ago, Logan Paul won the U.S. title, and I was in the same boat as a lot of you. Logan Paul versus LA Knight. Then we saw the result of Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens at the Rumble, and now even more build through the Elimination Chamber, and I'm still like, well, Logan Paul and Owens have an unfinished story. That makes sense to happen at WrestleMania. But then we see Logan Paul crack Randy Orton with brass knucks, and it's like, well, Orton ain't gonna not go after Logan Paul, and Orton's been one of the biggest question marks regarding WrestleMania 40, because ain't no way that dude is going to be left off WrestleMania this year after missing the show due to injury last year. At this point, and usually I'm not the guy to predict this kind of stuff because it just seems like the easy way out when, you know, I'm trying to sit here and really figure stuff out and fantasy book and put my creative cap on or whatever that may be. But based off what we have seen as of late, AJ Styles also costing LA Knight his spot in this matchup, coming in, hitting him with the chair, which we have talked about Styles and LA Knight one-on-one. I could very much see a multi-man match at WrestleMania for the United States Championship. Bobby Lashley's kind of the odd one out. I don't know if Lashley will be involved. I honestly want them to just do like a 6-man tag, no disqualifications, because there's been a ton of brawls and Cross just used a chair on Lashley the other night. Literally 6-man tag, all-out war between Lashley and the Profits versus Cross and the AOP at Mania. That might seem more random than a 5-way or 3-way, whatever we're going to get, but that's what I would honestly like to see with Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania. But as for the U.S. title, man, you got Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, LA Knight, and AJ Styles. LA Knight and AJ, I could see having their own one-on-one match. At the same time, though, I don't see Logan, Owens, and Orton just having a triple threat, so I wouldn't mind a good Fatal 5-way. You know, you don't need a ladder match or anything like that, just a Fatal 5-way, no DQ, U.S. title between those 5 guys I just mentioned. And obviously, maybe Lashley's involved and it's a 6-pack challenge, or maybe Lashley does, you know, his own thing at Mania. But I would not mind seeing that at WrestleMania. You're getting all 5 of those names on the card, the United States Championship to be defended. I think at this point, they've kind of built up to it. I wouldn't be surprised, man. Like I said, I normally don't fantasy book that stuff and predict that stuff because it's just kind of an easy cop-out to say, oh, well, let's get everybody on the show. But based off what we've seen on television, that kind of seems like where we're heading. So I'm about it if that's where we're heading. I'm sure we're going to find out more on SmackDown this week. Maybe not necessarily an announcement, but obviously I expect a lot of guys to be going after Logan Paul's United States Championship, and LA Knight and AJ Styles maybe in that hunt as well. So remains to be seen. But for a 4-match show, not including the kickoff, Elimination Chamber was a lot of fun from Perth, Australia. And now all eyes are on WrestleMania 40, and we have made a ton of content already. We've been talking about WrestleMania 40 since last April here on the channel. We got a whole playlist, which I'll link up in the cards, that you guys can go check out all the previous WrestleMania 40 discussions, but of course, those are not slowing down anytime soon. We got another 6 weeks until we get to Philadelphia, so definitely stay tuned to the content, stay tuned to the channel. We're going to be talking a lot more about WrestleMania 40. And let me know your thoughts on not only the Elimination Chamber, but where you think some of these stories are heading into WrestleMania down below in the comments. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe as well, and go follow me across all social medias at Noah Nation Vlogs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys in the next one. Peace.